The winds never rest in the remoteness of the South Atlantic Ocean. Here, a small island emerges with great stories to tell. Once a natural fortress where the British Crown exiled its most dangerous enemies. Today, a destination filled with secret wonders. However, the journey is tough. 5 days by boat from South Africa. An airport was carved into the mountains, but was revealed to be too dangerous for commercial flights, for heavy winds crashed through the rocks and steep cliffs around it. The airway was locked. That was before the Embraer 190 arrived. Here Napoleon Bonaparte lived his last years. Here he laid down to nevermore. One can still feel the French emperor and his broken spirit gazing at the horizon from these dungeon cliffs, so far from the continent he once ruled. On this land, time stands still. And Jonathan is its witness. He's the oldest terrestrial animal in the world. If he could talk, he would tell us stories about princes, soldiers and farmers for whom the island served as a prison. To some of them, as a final resting place. But for the saints, those born and raised here, it's a private paradise. They've grown deep roots in this volcanic soil. Kindness is all around, ready to be shared. Yet quiet is the airport. Not today. 5 centuries after Portuguese navigators reached this island sailing the ocean, a Brazilian aircrew took a similar route, this time sailing the winds. Their ship, the first prototype of an advanced aircraft known worldwide, the Embraer 190. With capacity for up to 114 passengers and incorporating fly-by-wire technology, this aircraft model performed successful campaigns in many difficult airports around the world. Today's challenge: to prove that a commercial operation in Santa Helena's airport is viable and safe when you've got the right tool. After several successful takeoffs and landings, the aircraft collected enough data to guide future operations here. But the decision whether the airport should open its gates to the world relies on the islanders' needs and well-being. And as the Embraer 190 takes its path back through the clouds, leaving behind the impressive sight of Santa Helena's boundaries, one thing became clear. It was not the island which remained isolated throughout the centuries, but the rest of the world.
St. Helena is a rugged and remote island. Its rocky ramparts rise from the southern Atlantic nearly 2,000 kilometers off the coast of Africa. It emerged from the sea around 14 million years ago, and although it's remote, life has had plenty of time to find it and colonize it. When the first Portuguese explorers landed here in 1502, they found an island covered in vegetation. Many of the plants were unique to St. Helena. The animals, too, had evolved for so long in isolation that they were now unique to the island. Hundreds of species on St. Helena are found nowhere else on Earth. The island certainly deserves its description as the Galapagos of the Atlantic. St. Helena's natural history is special because it is so remote, and its extreme isolation also proved very useful to the British in 1815, when the Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte was exiled here after his defeat at Waterloo. He lived at Longwood House until his death just 6 years later. And by then, the biological treasures of St. Helena were already under threat. There were no native mammals on St. Helena, but soon after people came, cats, rats and mice made themselves at home here and wreaked havoc on the local creatures. St. Helena had several species of unique birds, but soon most were eaten to extinction, save one, now under the care of the St. Helena National Trust. For the last decade, Eddie Duff has been carefully monitoring this bird, the wirebird, a kind of plover. It nests on the ground, and with its tiny defenseless chicks, it's easy to see why ground predators had such a devastating effect. But since 2012, cats have been trapped, and already Eddie and his team have noticed a rise in the number of surviving chicks. And the removal of at least some of the cats has benefited other birds as well. St. Helena was once an important nesting ground for tropical seabirds. The rats, cats and mice haven't been completely eradicated, but their numbers have been thinned, and slowly many of the seabirds, such as this masked booby, are returning. Masked boobies occur right around the tropics, often in large noisy colonies. And here on St. Helena, they are slowly reclaiming what was once another such spectacular colony. Among the cats, rats and mice, settlers also brought alien plants, like New Zealand flax. The flax plants now cover vast areas of the island. Many of the ridgetops and mountains are completely dominated with flax, such as here behind me. Introduced grazing animals added to the problems for St. Helena's natives. And between invasive plants and hungry mouths, St. Helena's unique plants have been forced to the most remote parts of the island. Like these scrubwood bushes, were wiped out completely. And with these plants went many species of invertebrates that depended upon them. Some of the invertebrates are extremely rare, with just a few hundred individuals, or even less of some species. Among the incredible diversity are the golden sail spider, with its shining triangular abdomen, the blushing snail, the scrubwood leafhopper, the Hellenian brown lacewing, the common red scarab beetle, the vulture leafhopper, found only along the high central ridge, and Loveridge's hoverfly. Conservation teams are working hard to restore native plants and manage habitats for rare invertebrates, and not a moment too soon. The spiky yellow woodlouse is down to its last few hundred individuals. It's one of the rarest animals on the planet. And for some, it's already too late. St. Helena had a giant earwig, now only a museum specimen. We still don't know the full story of St. Helena's unique invertebrates. In these remote and spectacular landscapes, new discoveries are still being made. In 2015, 2 new species of parasitic wasps were found. One named after the exiled Napoleon Bonaparte. I'm not sure what the emperor would have made of this honor. He hated St. Helena's isolation. But it was that same isolation that created this biological treasure house, one like no other. St. Helena is a remote speck of land in the southern Atlantic Ocean. Its isolation has meant that many plants and animals here have evolved into unique species found nowhere else on Earth. St. Helena once had several species of unique birds, but thanks to introduced predators, only one now survives, the lyrebird, a kind of plover. It was so rare, it became the focus of a major conservation campaign. While I was on the island, I met with Eddie Duff, who's been monitoring lyrebirds since 2006. He has scoured the island for breeding lyrebirds, and he's taking me to see one of those precious nests.
There's a lyrebird nest right here.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow, 2 eggs. And of those that survive then, what sort of percentage as a whole would get to adult stage, adult birds?
Throughout the whole island would be about 15%.
15?
Yeah.
What impacts, what causes that predation?
Cats, feral cats in the area. It's like some stupid people sometimes bring house cats out here in the wilderness and let them go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then they become feral cats. And then you got rats, and then you got monitors. So the trick on the trade is trying to cut down on the whole tree predators at once.
In 2011, scientists began a predator control program to give the lyrebirds a better chance of survival. They nest in open areas with little cover, and although their nests are well camouflaged, they're still very vulnerable to introduced rats, minor birds, and cats. Individual nests are monitored with remote cameras that are triggered by movement, so the scientists can see which areas are most at risk from introduced predators. Kevin George from the St. Helena National Trust explains.
This is one of our cameras that we have out in the field as well, again part of our predator control program. We have caught many cats on camera as well, so the specific locations can be mapped and we know what areas to actually target.
And specially designed tunnels also monitor the number of rats around breeding sites.
If I look at this tunnel here, we have the ink and peanut butter is laid. That was done yesterday, and we have some tracks on here that are tracks of a rat. The tunnel itself is active. There was also a rat present.
Only 2 years after the control program began, lyrebird numbers began to increase, and there's plenty of habitat for them on the island, including man-made ones. They need open areas of short vegetation, so a football field is ideal. Here, the birds can raise their tiny chicks. It's easy to see why these birds are so at risk from predators. But the predator control program, and the fact they obviously don't mind sharing their island with people, gives hope for the future.
This island, it just sits in paradise, I have to say. It's hard to explain because it's just a little tiny dot on the, you know. But to know about St. Helena, you have to come here. Because I thought it was greener pastures elsewhere. But there's no place not like St. Helena. I wave to everybody, so don't ask me their names, but I know them by looks. Well, we always class ourselves as saints because we are St. Helena, yeah? I think we are religious in our own way. We are very, very soft-hearted people. I don't have money, but I got animals. As long as I can get good produce from the ground and keep myself alive, then I'm a happy saint. If the sheep bearing at me and the chickens is growing, so you know, that's it. That's my life. No, I never get lonely. Not out here, no. Ah, Buddy. My dog, gotta have it. That's my company. That is one person who I talk to and always get a sensible answer. It's my dog. Now, the younger folk today doesn't want to dirty their hands. They like to be on their mobile or computer, whatever. You have to work hard because you only can reap what you sow. If you don't sow it, then you can't reap it. I would think that life is what you make it. Always look to the bright side of things. And never let little things get you down. Just think what lumps of gold you got in your hands, but you can't see. I may be a bit ancient, but I love my life. I just love my life.
St. Helena lies in the middle of the Atlantic, well within the tropics. When the Portuguese discovered this island at the start of the 16th century, it was covered in lush forests made up of many unique plants found nowhere else. Unfortunately, generations of introduced grazers, together with alien plants brought by visitors and settlers, have forced the native plants to retreat to the most remote ledges. New Zealand flax was planted on a large scale to produce fibres to make string and rope for export. But after the industry collapsed, the flax plants became rampant and now cover vast areas of the island. Some native plants, like this scrubwood, are recovering, thanks to protection from free-ranging livestock. Others are not doing so well, and some, like the bastard gumwood, are down to a last few individuals. This is one of the last two remaining bastard gumwood trees in the world. There's this tree here and another on the other side of the island, several kilometres away, and that's it for the species. The entire effort to save this tree from extinction rests on these two individuals. Rebecca Cairns-Wicks is a conservation biologist who lives on the island and has been working to save the last remnants of St. Helena's unique flora. How critical for the species on St. Helena did it become?
We're talking the last hour. We're talking about species that were down to single individuals, which means was the last individual in the world of this species. So wow. It doesn't get more critical or life on the brink than that. And conservationists were faced not just with one species down to a single individual, several species down to single individuals. So the conservationists on St. Helena were dealt an incredibly hard task to try and recover these species that were right on the brink of extinction. Sadly, we missed a number of individuals, so a number of species have become extinct. Some before modern conservation efforts, some more recently.
Now, a specialist nursery has been set up, where seed collected from the last few individual plants can be grown on in large numbers. Some of these plants were thought to be extinct until careful searching of the island's remote districts revealed a precious few individuals.
So this one we have over here is the St. Helena boxwood. This one had disappeared. It disappeared off the records for about 100 years.
Now, with the backing and expertise of Kew Gardens back in London, seeds from the rarest plants on Earth are grown on in carefully controlled conditions.
And eventually we get to the point where we have a nice strong seedling in the bag here. And this one now is ready to go back and be planted in the wild.
This is the Millennium Forest, begun when almost every islander bought and planted native trees. The work continues, and slowly, the original woodlands that once covered the island are being recreated. So 12 or 13 years, it should be around the size of these ones nearby us. But the modern world still continues to pose a threat to these rare plants. An airport is being built on the island, and on the only site for the St. Helena barn fern.
So this is the St. Helenian barn fern. It's a species that's been displaced by the airport construction.
Right.
We've recovered the plants we can find. This represents what we think is about 70% of the world population. Once the airport's in situ and settled down, we hope to find replacement habitat for this close to where it was, and it should then be successfully reintroduced into the wild.
St. Helena's conservationists just don't give up. So it seems to me that the future of St. Helena's unique flora is looking brighter. So how do you see the future for these unique plants and animals on St. Helena?
Well, as you say, they are unique, not just to St Helena, but to the whole world. So it's critical that we look after them, and we'll keep looking, because as we've already mentioned, we've already found a few species that we thought were previously extinct, and if we're still looking, then there's still hope.
For thousands of years, St Helena was cut off from the rest of the world. Isolation, that meant its animals and plants, evolved in a unique way. Today, St Helena has more native and endemic species than any other UK overseas territory. Some, like the dainty lyrebird, are found nowhere else on Earth. Unfortunately, their very specialist development means St Helena plants and animals are extremely vulnerable to diseases or competition from non-native species. That's why it's so important that we protect them, by making sure we don't accidentally import anything that could cause irrevocable harm. Whether you're arriving by air or sea, you need to make the biosecurity staff aware if you're carrying any fruit, honey, or animal products. These should be handed over when you arrive or placed in the secure bins before you enter St Helena.
Honey, good South African honey.
Okay. Unfortunately, the honey's not going to be allowed to come in. It's a raw product. Any diseases the bees have got are in there as well. So we'll be disposing that today.
I've got this fruit. It came from my garden in Cape Town.
The fresh fruit's not going to be able to come in at all. Any disease such as fruit fly, citrus canker, so we'll be taking those as well. So
Okay.
all these will be disposed of into our quarantine bins. So it goes with destruction.
Items such as sports equipment or wooden souvenirs may also harbour serious threats to island species and must be declared.
Okay, we'll have a look at that. We're just checking for insect masses or any signs of boring insects.
Seeds can become attached to walking boots, bags and outdoor clothing. This is particularly likely if you've recently been hiking in the outdoors, perhaps on nature reserves or golf courses or across farmland.
And where have these been used?
Going for weekend walks up in the mountain.
We will be giving these a clean. There's a little bit of soil here, possibly some animal waste, could be some seeds in it. So we'll take that into the lab, give it a scrub, and we'll bring them back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
The seeds pose a survival threat to the island's endemic plants. As such, it's important to declare walking boots and other outdoor equipment so these items can be disinfected. These biosecurity rules are legally binding, and there may be serious fines for anybody found breaking the law. So remember to declare. You'll not only be complying with the law, but also helping to preserve some of the world's most unique plants and animals. Thank you for helping protect our beautiful island, and we hope you enjoy your stay.
You know, when I was abroad, they goes, Debbie, where are you from? Is there any more like you? So I goes, yes, we're from St Helena. Where is St Helena? And then I goes, have you ever heard of Napoleon? Yes, was that the place he was exiled? And then I think they have this picture of this horrible old little place with Napoleon being a prisoner there, and then you try and explain, no, this is how St Helena is. It's small, it's unique, people are friendly, you would love it. So I'm the manager here of Plantation House, so I goes around and I have a look. I come over here and I check the silver. So far, so good. But this is the original chandelier from Napoleon's house. When you come in this room, you hear lots of argument going on because you've got Napoleon there and you've got Sir Hudson Lowe there. And if you look at those two portraits, they're not looking at each other, look. They're not seeing eye to eye. And I'm thinking, oh, what did really go on when he was a prisoner and he was a governor? It was nice to go back to those years and live that, but we can only go by the stories. There's also a nice room, isn't it? Look. This is part of plantation furniture, but it hasn't been played for a very, very long time. No, not very good. Needs tuning. Now this is Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan. Jonathan is the tortoise that was brought here to Plantation House in 1882. Jonathan is the oldest inhabitant here. If it's not the whole world, it's definitely in St. Helena. Now, he likes to be tickled. Come on. No. I bet you can tell some stories. He's seen some governors and their wives and different staff. 186 and still very, very active, eh? Huh? Oh, poor Emma. Jonathan likes to meet with Emma all the time. Oh my God, so it's hope for us yet at 186 years old. This is my little station here. What do you think of this? This was in 2007 when all of my family was together. It's 5 generations there. And my grandma, she was 1 week before she was 102, before she passed on. So I wonder if I've got those genes. Maybe. This book can tell you. Everybody else looking all right, and here I am, lifting up the skirt, showing the old days underwear, look. And everybody was in that audience laughing. And I found like I was happy, making other people happy and laugh. It's a good medicine of making people happy and laughing. So that's what you want to do, isn't it?
in the South Atlantic Ocean, hundreds of miles from anywhere, to the top of a mountain in the sea.
South of the equator, if you're north, and if you're in the south, you're almost there.
Even if you go on the map and look, you wouldn't find it.
It's hard to explain because it's just a little tiny dot. This island, it just sits in paradise.
Jewel in the Atlantic. The place for a holiday. If you want to come to St. Helena.
Well, I think it's nice for people to come and visit, get to know our little old place, being so far out in the middle of the ocean, as they say.
To know about St. Helena, you have to come here.
St. Helena is special. It's the climate, the isolation, the landscape. You got stark coastline, high cliffs jutting out of the sea, but in the middle you got this tranquil green paradise.
This island is such a beautiful island. Beautiful hills, surrounded by this beautiful ocean.
Marine environment is probably a bit different. There are quite a variety of endemic species. They've always had whale sharks here. I can't explain the feeling of seeing one and being in the water with one, yes.
I don't think there's a lot of people who know how special this island is to the world. They can see stuff on this little tiny island in the middle of the South Atlantic where they couldn't see in the rest of the world. If heaven's like this, then I want to go.